And again, that sort of relates to people, their place within society and their place on this world. And it's the interpersonal relationships as we enter the orbit and the gravitational field of somebody else, and vice versa, that it changes the course of our lives as well.
Mhm.
It's just really fascinating. So all these thoughts are popping through my head. So yeah, song's all right. No, I really enjoyed it. It's really thought provoking as well. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. My name's John. His name is Andy. With the fire from the fireworks up above me, with a gun for a lover, and a shot for the pain at hand. You run for cover in the temple of love. You run for another, but still the same. For the wind will blow my name across this land. More on that later. But first, we have a track to listen to, so let's Andy. Andy, what is in store for us today?
We are going to be revisiting a band that we haven't listened to in quite some time. And we are finally going to be moving off from their prolific, in my opinion, and many critics' opinions, debut album onto their sophomore effort. And I think you have some, you can clear the air here actually for me when I tell you who it is. But we're going to be doing the Silversun pickups again, which you ironically grabbed the album off a moment ago when we were doing another episode and trying to figure out or grab another band's album, and it was Silversun pickups and Carnivas. But we're going to be moving on to Swoon now, their second album, as I mentioned, and the track Growing Old is Getting Old. And if that ain't true, I don't know what is. But tell me about your relationship with Swoon. You have it in digital form, and just fill in the blanks for me here.
Yes. In fact, I have Swoon and just looking up now. I've also got Neck of the Woods
Neck
as
of the
well.
Woods, right?
And I don't remember a lick of either of those albums, but I have been enjoying Carnivas, so there you go.
Excellent.
And kind of in anticipation, I haven't checked out the other stuff because I thought
Okay.
you'd bring it up.
Great. No, I'm
So
glad you didn't. So even if you did give it this sort of, passive listen umpteen years ago when it came out or whatever, we can revisit it now with maybe an added bit of context since you are familiar
yeah,
with it and very much enjoying the first album. So please go check out Growing Old is Getting Old by Silver Sun Pickups and come back and let us all know what you think.
will do. Just wondering where it's going to come in. Yeah, just nice intro there. So you got this sort of pulsing beat from bass drum that's slightly sort of muffled. It's not striking out, and then there's quite funky little bass line, almost like quite an 80s bass line. So it's quite up tempo really. And then behind that in come these sort of keyboard notes. That are sort of expansive, reaching out like contrails, leaving their mark across the canvas. And behind that, there's also this sort of background chatter, the mutterings of the guitar. It feels like, even though it's quite a tempo, it feels like a slow burn, this song. And then rounds come in. So as a whiz back, just a touch.
So we are growing old, and it's getting old. pressure on our hollow bones and the varicose. Suddenly, we're taking pose, but we're not alone. So we all are growing old. Maybe we're still in silence. Maybe we feel the guidance. Maybe your own devices will keep you afraid and cold. But I memorize your smile lines when lips divide.
Like, just very quickly. So there's lots of really interesting things going on here. Lyrically, it's on about we're growing old and it's getting old. You wonder what the it is and getting old. So it refers to sort of the idiom, oh, it's getting old now, meaning it's annoying or boring through repetition usually. I don't know if he means human condition or if he means their situation as a band. I get the feeling there's a lot of this macro micro thing going on here throughout the song, musically and lyrically. It's really interesting. I mean, he says about suddenly we decompose and we're not alone. So there's the question of mortality. And I feel like he's sort of talking about our place within the universe, but also our place within our own sort of little environment as well. Again, macro and micro. You get the keyboards are doing this big swathing sort of notes that are really nice. And some of them are like a tinge with emotion, almost like you feel like there's regret or something to them. And all the time the guitar is sort of bustling away, this lovely sort of busy picked motif. It reminded me of the guitar in the Blue Airplanes. I think the song's called Anne Stones, and it's a bit more energetic, but it's the same tick, and it sort of picks up with that. So yeah, that guitar is almost like the sort of minutiae of life itself, you know, the ordinary everyday sort of bustle and going about. Really interesting. And it does feel like it's starting to really build, and it's talking about being afraid of the cold. And again, that's just like a primitive thing, but again, the coldness of the universe. And then it talks about memorizing the smile lines. It just makes you wonder about sort of mortality and death, you know, the real death being the death of memories. If you no longer remembers, then but people that come after you, then no, then you probably really are truly dead. And do we cheat that now with our modern devices that can record things forever? Like this episode, God knows how long it will be on YouTube. Probably long. There'll be definitely stuff on YouTube that's there for people who've passed on, and that may be their sort of memory. Really interesting stuff.
Kept alive, it's childlike reaction time.
Shimmering now, the guitar.
We're allowed to expire with ourselves in mind. So we all are growing old.
Brilliant. I love it. Sorry, I've stopped there. We will just go back very quickly, but that'll do. When that guitar came in, ding 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 ding, and a bit with the bass as well. My brain works, but it just reminded me of Venus. Shocking Blue, Bananarama, take your pick. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just reminded me of that. And then the drums proper kicked in, that kit, and it sounds like they're really spitting in contrast to what's gone before. Then, particularly, I think, but yeah, that's really cool.
And put out your own devices. And don't be afraid of the cold.
Don't be afraid. Yeah, that was really enjoyable. I'm glad it's sort of the storm broke, as it were, the building up and then kicking in. It's great. It sounded really good. There's almost a load of defiance or an optimism to it. And there's something about singing and fighting and crying and sliding into the light, which you can take a couple of ways, really. Sort of, you can say that sliding into the light is towards civilization or knowledge, choosing either dark ages, or that sort of cliche thing about the death and going towards the light. Yeah, could be either. But yeah, the final line, like, nowhere to go but here. I mean, it's kind of an acceptance, isn't it, of the situation, and whatever's going on around life is going on right in front of you, and so it's probably best to live it, rather than ponder about everything else. Yeah, really interesting. It threw all sorts of stuff about sort of again the idea of cosmic atrophy and all sorts of things were flashing through my mind. Really interesting. Yeah, it sounded great as well. Very much in their vein, what they do, so it's recognizable. But yeah, great track. Yeah, another good one from Andy for Silversun pickups. Obviously didn't catch all of it. So we need to find out exactly what the hell's going on. Let's go back and chop it up with Andy.
All right, so you are back from checking out Silversun pickups and growing old is getting old. Tell us, John, what do you think?
Yeah, interesting stuff. So it starts with this fairly up-tempo beat to a funky bass line. That sort of bass drum beat is kind of slightly muffled, and it continues like a pulse really through the first half of the song. Backstage, as it were, in the track, we can discern keyboard notes that are kind of drifting like contrails across the track, and then beyond that, the distant chatter of guitars starting up, almost like cosmic static. Our man enters, never remember his name, with his distinctive vocal approach. So we all are growing old, and it's getting old. So that's sticking to the title. You wonder what the it is that is getting old, and it's getting old, because that idiom usually refers to something that was becoming boring or annoying. Again, usually because of repetition. So perhaps on a macro level, he's talking about the human condition, or on a micro level, locally, talking about their situation as being in a band. I hope not. Probably not, because they did albums after this. So. But yeah, it's interesting. And this theme of macro and micro, I pick up, whether it's intended or not, throughout this song, which really gives me pause for a lot of thought. So there's a lovely like shimmer as those distant chatter of guitars build and grow, like speeded up footage of moss. And they scatter across the track in a truly beautiful manner, and they do develop throughout the song as well. If those beginning guitars, those sort of picks, were done more forcefully, it would sound like the entrance to a funk breakdown on a 1980s track, but it's not, obviously. But that's sort of, really interesting. There's a mention, he said something about bones and stuff. Sometimes his breathy delivery, which has this, touch of reverb to it as well. It makes it tricky on first listen when he really leans into his style of singing. When he sort of reins it back a bit, it's clearer. This is just first listen stuff. It's not, there's no problem with understanding it normally. We then get, suddenly we decompose, but we're not alone. So the bass really shines forward at this point for me during this little bit, and it does start to feel that this is a slow burn song. It clearly is talking about mortality here, or addressing it as a subject to then explore. The lines and the music feel almost weighty with this potential energy that you feel is coming. So we all are growing old, he repeats. And at this point, there's some keyboard notes can start to build. So all the layers are starting to grow and thicken out and fill out the song. And the keyboard notes here, they kind of add, it's difficult, but for me, there's to assign emotions to notes, but it almost sounds like a layer of regret or something like that to the notes, or chagrin. Sweeping movements contrast nicely with the active guitar phrasing. And again, I get this impression of big picture, little picture. So the big picture are the keyboards making these big swooping notes, almost like on a cosmic level. And then the guitar, the busy, fussy, little notey guitar is little picture. It's almost like the minutiae of daily life and just going about your business. It's starting to feel like there's a whole palette of emotions here being slowly mixed and applied throughout the track. Really interesting. As it goes through the next stanza, I'm not sure about any verse chorus structure here, so I'm just going to call them stanzas because I don't really think there is a chorus. He sings something about being sealed in silence, which again sounds like the question of mortality. And the lines memorized your smile lines from left to right. And it's really interesting, again, this personal connection here about what lives on after. And is it the death of memories, the real permanent death? I mean, it's always said that as long as someone remembers you, you're still alive. That's why prominent and rich people kind of put up statues of themselves, before. And I think now, because he mentions a line about devices, and I'm not sure what he's talking about here, but then I was thinking, do our modern devices cheat death the way we can actually capture and prove that someone was alive and hear their sound and their voice? Decades. And I even had a little sort of existential moment here thinking about this YouTube channel or other YouTube channels that may still be going. And there definitely will be channels out there that's showing stuff from people who passed on. And it's just really interesting. Is this a different sort of cemetery, a digital cemetery, as it were, where you can actually see folks who've passed on? Very interesting. Throughout this passage, the guitars, the beautiful guitars, really grow and they start to ring out. And two things. One, they almost sound like cascading bells that call the congregation to church. And again, I got this notion here that popped in my head about people explain the Angelus to us, particularly in France where my folks live. So that calling was set for 3 times during the day, and it was, although you think it's to do with worship, it was actually to do with control, and it was the workers in the field. They didn't have watches or time, whatever, so they lived to the bells of the church and their working life as well. So again, it's another anyway. But also those guitars, the way they come in, really reminded me of the start of the song by a band called the Blue Aeroplanes. And the song's called And Stones, and it starts to doom, and the guitars build into the song. It's really nice. They're a decent band, the Blue Airplanes. I saw them support REM, and they had about 8 guitarists on the stage. It was stupid. But the guy, I think the lead singer's a guy called Gerard, and he was basically a beats poet, and he was about 10 years older than everybody else in the band, which could have been seen as creepy, but I'm sure it wasn't. But yeah, I really wanted to like them because they were supporting REM, and I liked them, but I didn't like them. That they weren't great. They were just anyway. So then he says we're allowed to expire with ourselves in mind, and then it repeats the growing old line. So we're roughly now at this again, this mortality and this idea of what's our place in the world, as it were, or in the universe. So we're roughly at the halfway point of the song, and it's definitely building, and the anticipation is there for whatever crescendo is to come. He repeats references then to, and I didn't catch all of this, but there's other stuff he said before, but he precedes it with the prefix of put out. Put out there is silence, guidance, devices, and the cold. And he talks about the fear of the cold. And then, hey presto, the song does shift. So the guitar changes from this picking into the strumming pattern. And along that, the bass line, and along with the bass line, it could easily be a distant cousin, of Venus. The song. I'm sure we have plenty of fans of the channel who are fans of both Shocking Blue and Bananarama. That sort of doom, 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 doom. Anyway, that's how my mind works. And just to remind him that was really funny. The pulsing bass drum then evolves into the full kit. But because it's going for this sort of muffled pulse now to the full kit, the strikes of the drum sort of almost spitting out and crackling with snappiness to them. It's just the contrast, but it sounds great. And then we get either multiple voices or his colleagues, or it's double track, the vocals. And it says we sing, 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 we fight, 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 we cry, 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 we slide, slide, slide into the light. Again, that's really interesting. It's anthemic and it's also a bit of defiance and a bit of optimism as well. And this sliding into the light can be taken a couple of ways. Um, Almost like entering the Renaissance from the Dark Ages, but also that sort of cod thing about walking towards the light when you're dying as well. So again, there's a duality of possible meaning to it. Really interesting. The guitar starts to develop this rasp to its tone, and the distortion comes in. The tempo increases and the intensity ramps up. I kind of struggle. It just repeats some stuff for the last lyrics, but I get this afraid of the cold, which I think it repeats again, afraid of the cold, afraid of the time, and then nowhere to go but here. And then the song just peters out. So it's interesting. There's this question of morality, of mortality, sorry. And I think are placed within the whole cosmic setup. But the final lines have this sort of acceptance of sorts. That life goes on all around you, no matter what you're thinking about, up above your head, or miles or light years above your head. Life is still continuing on right in front of your nose, so you might as well live it here, as the last word he says. It's here. Really interesting. And it sort of started making me think about all sorts of stuff like, cosmic atrophy, redshift, blue shift, expansion, and it's interesting how there's sort of what little I know about sort of, the physical aspects of the universe and the sort of theories in place, but they also can relate to personal stuff as well. So you get this sort of redshift, it's expansion, and there's parts of the universe which are stretching apart. But there are other parts of the universe where it's not happening, where you get this blue shift for things coming together. And that is because of gravitational pull, the law of attraction. And again, that sort of relates to people, their place within society and their place on this world. And it's the interpersonal relationships as we enter the orbit and the gravitational field of somebody else, and vice versa, that it changes the course of our lives as well. It's just really fascinating. So all these thoughts are popping through my head. So yeah, song's all right. No, I really enjoyed it. It's really thought-provoking as well.
It is.
Musically, it didn't quite have all the fireworks of some of the others on Carnivus, but it was really, really good song. It probably wasn't quite up there with Lazy Eye, but it's really good, and I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
I'm so glad you did. This is oh man, it's hard for me to say, but at times this is definitely my favorite song off this album. And for me it does contend with some of the best material on Carnivas. I don't know what it is about this. It's something that is I think like universally relatable, and are all things that it discusses a topic that I think all of us have grappled with at different points in our life. And I now more than ever, the older I get, it becomes more relatable, not because I'm getting old, but because the people that I love the most and revere the most in this life are now getting older, to like that, the threshold age of where you don't know how much time you have left with these individuals. So yeah, it makes me think of someone like my father, and how much I love him and how much he has affected me in my life, and the time we have with him, and the idea of keeping him alive through memory, like you were talking about, and if that's possible, and what that looks like, and what that's going to feel like for me when he isn't physically here anymore, and stuff like that. So it is really stirring and moving stuff for me to listen to, and the way the song moves, progresses, evolves, blossoms, and then comes to an end is almost the way life runs its course, which I think is another really interesting attribute to the track as well. So I'm glad that you liked it as much as you did. So let me get into this stuff. Quick recap of the band, because as mentioned, we've discussed them plenty of times here before. They are an American alternative rock band from LA that formed in the year 2000, and the band is composed of Brian Albert, lead vocals, guitar, and occasional keyboards, Nikki Moninger on bass, backing vocals, and occasionally lead vocals. Chris Guanlao on drums, percussions, programming, and also occasional backing vocals, and Joe Lester, keyboard, sampler, sound manipulation, talk box, occasional guitar and backing vocals, but basically the guy who's in charge of gadgetry. Um, and we've extensively covered tracks on their groundbreaking debut album, Carnivore. So today I'm just going to focus on this band's sophomore effort, Swoon. And it was released through Dangerbird Records on April 14th, 2009. And the name of the album comes from the line in the outro of the first track, "There's No Secrets This Year." After completing their Carnivos tour, in late 2007, the band took a break until February of the next year, and they began recording in their own studio that they named The Dark. The album was produced by Dave Cooley, who had worked with the band on their debut album as well. Recording was completed between July 2008 and February 2009. And during the recording process, the band laid down about 17 different songs, which eventually was winnowed down to 10 for the album proper. The first single released was the track Panic Switch. And on April 6th, the track There's No Secrets This Year was released as a single on various online music stores as well. The bonus track, Currency of Love, was released exclusively on iTunes with pre-orders in the US and Canada, but was issued as a regular album track in other countries. And the song Ne Plus Ultra was released as a B-side on the single for Panic Switch. As with Carnivos, the album's packaging features the artwork of Darren Waterston, this time using his 2008 piece St. Clair as the basis for the cover art. The inside packaging also features Waterston's pieces Disembodiment and Reverberations. All paintings are from his collection entitled The Flowering. And like Carnivos, Swoon received generally positive reviews from critics. The album reached the 7th spot on the Billboard 200 with 43,000 copies sold in its first week, compared to Carnivos, which peaked only at number 80 on the Billboard 200. And as of May of 2012, Swoon has sold 318,000 copies. The AV Club graded the album a B, while AllMusic and Sputnik Music awarded it 4 out of 5 stars. The Enemy scored it 9 out of 10, and Kerrang deemed it to be a 5 out of 5 star effort. This track that I had you listen today, Growing Old is Getting Old, is the third track on Swoon. And of it, Pop Dose Ezine would write the following. One of the band's most enjoyable talents, which surfaced on Carnivos and is showcased even more effectively on Swoon, is their ability to let a song drift, particularly on Growing Old is Getting Old and Draining. The songs extend purposefully, as the band lets their instruments roam comfortably past the 4 and 5 minute barriers that constrain too many other musicians and songs. And over at Seattle PI, Sarah Marshman reviewed the album and made this observation. What exactly makes this band great, you ask? Personally, I believe it is Meininger's easy yet valuable bass lines teamed with Albert's distorted guitars. Where could you find such a fascinating amalgamation? Growing Old is Getting Old is the perfect example of their schizophrenic noise. It is a cool song with a very strong build-up and payoff. So, these lyrics. So we all are growing old, and it's getting old. Pressure on our hollow bones and the varicose. Suddenly we decompose, but we're not alone. So we all are growing old. Maybe we're sealed in silence, and maybe we feel a guidance. Maybe your own devices will keep you afraid and cold, but I memorized your smile lines from left to right, came to life, and childlike reaction time. We're allowed to expire with ourselves in mind. So we all are growing old. Pull out the fear of silence and put out the need for guidance and put out your own devices and don't be afraid of the cold. And we sing, sing, sing. Fight, we fight, we fight. We cry, we cry, we cry. We slide, we slide, we slide into the light. And that stanza, to me, really represents both ends of life. Coming into the world, singing, being loud, fighting, crying, sliding into the light of the hospital room, or the opposite, fighting death, not wanting to go, being in pain and agony, and then finally leaving into the light of whatever the afterlife is. Returning to the lyrics, do we sing, fight, we cry, we slide, slide, we slide into the light? Maybe we're sealed in silence, and maybe we feel a guidance. Maybe your own devices will keep you afraid and cold. Well, pull out the fear of silence, put out the need for guidance, put out your own devices, and don't be afraid of the cold, afraid of the cold, afraid of the time. You've got nowhere to go but here. So, Jessica Bellumini of the Skyline View would review the album and write of this track, Growing Old is Getting Old. The song starts slowly with a big bass lead and lingering guitar. A song about the fear of growing old and the instinct to fight time. Albert sings, so we are all growing old, and it's getting old. Heavy guitar distortion follows as if to signify the frustration of time, followed by pull out the fear of silence, pull out the need for guidance, put out your own devices, and don't be afraid of the time. You've got nowhere to go but here. Yeah, which is really stark. You've got nowhere to go but here, as if to say there's nothing waiting for you on the other side. So enjoy it while you're here. At least that's my interpretation of it, but it is an interesting bit of lyricism for sure.
Or it's the sort of contrast between theory and reality.
Yeah.
You can theorize about everything, but the reality is what's in front of your nose.
Yeah,
And that
exactly.
is what you will experience in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah, it's really thought-provoking, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, wildly evocative song about obviously a subject that I think we all grapple with at some point in our lives, whether it's self-centered or focused on those we love or look up to or whatever. But we're all gonna have these thoughts at some point and experience this at some point. So in that case, it's very universal. So yeah, really appreciate you giving this a go. I will pick one or two more off Swoon, and maybe after that you can go rekindle your relationship with this album that has laid dormant digitally on your hard drive there. But appreciate you giving this a spin, John. Thank you so much.
They will fetch the exhibition kit.
Yeah,
I've done many times before.
Do some musical spelunking in the caverns of your hard drive. Folks out there in the listening audience, please let us know what your thoughts are on this track, this band. If you're familiar with these guys, whether you are or you aren't, what you thought about this track. Really be interested to hear what all of you have to say. Also, please like, share, and or subscribe if you haven't done any or all of those things. We really do appreciate it. And hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.